welcome to La Vida Las Vegas podcast. We're two physical therapists living the life in Las Vegas. I'm Dr. Erica.
And I'm Dr. Joe. We created this podcast for two reasons. First, to connect the healthcare, wellness, and fitness communities in Las Vegas. And second, to highlight all the amazing people we've met along the way.
Thank you for listening, and remember to take care of yourself.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You want to introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, my name is Dr. Andrew Kennis. I'm the owner of a company called the Charlotte Athlete, which is a performance physical therapy clinic here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I work with active adults, with athletes of all kinds, everyone from ball sport athletes to those who do CrossFit, weightlifting, run, Spartan races. Basically, anyone, active adults, and anyone who wants to, use their body however they want to, and if they run into pain or injuries, that slow them down, I'm someone that can help get them off their feet. I'm also an instructor in a physical therapy post-education fellowship program called IAR, which stands for the Institute for Athlete Education, and so I'm a big part, very heavily involved in education as well as work with my company here in Charlotte.
Very nice. So what made you want to be a PT?
It's a great question. So, just growing up, I was always active, always, into sports. I was very fit, and I loved working out, and I was a personal trainer for a number of years, and I knew I wanted to do something in the medical field, and I was kind of up in the air between going more medical side versus PT, and medical side meaning whether it's a sports medicine physician or a physician assistant. And then I was also exploring physical therapy, and I just really love the opportunity that physical therapists had to work one-on-one with an athlete over a longer period of time. Not just in the number of visits total, but also during those visits and how much time we could spend with them. And so, just fell in love with it, and fell in love with my ability to help others, and just kind of kept rolling with it, and went right into PT and worked through my doctorate degree. It was an awesome journey.
Love it. So as far as you didn't have the same route of a lot of people that are like, oh, I got injured, and then like this pivotal moment happened. It was more of like an interest for you, huh? Yeah,
more than anything, I just knew I wanted to. The biggest thing was I could not ever see myself sitting behind a desk for long periods of time. Even though some of the other, it's plenty of interesting fields out there, but being an active person, I consider myself more of an outgoing social person. I just love the human interaction. I love the constant changing, from day to day in terms of different types of injuries and different, the different ways, the different treatment plans could go. It was just really fascinating to me. And so it just was a really good fit.
So tell our listeners what a fellowship program is and what does that mean?
Yeah, of course. And also to rewind a second there, I didn't mention it, I don't believe in the intro, but after physical therapy school, I went on to do an orthopedic residency. And then, so that was in Houston, Texas. And then the manual physical therapy, orthopedic, and sports fellowship through IAR. And so yeah, it's basically, it's niched down, it's post-professional training. It's very specific towards manual therapy, advanced manual therapy, and clinical reasoning, based heavily on movement. And so it's basically, it can be completed at your own pace in a sense, from a mentoring hour sense, but basically it's a 3-year total program, can be completed sooner. It's a part-time program, so we met for weekend courses over the course of 18 different weekends, and then we had mentoring hours to complete, where we worked underneath a fellow and received direct feedback there, along with other tests and different assignments and whatnot. And it's just something that really accelerated my career, and I would say probably the best clinical or best professional decision I've made. Along with starting my own business, it's really made quite a difference in my outcomes, which has been an amazing experience.
So what's the difference between a fellowship and a residency then?
Good question. So it just depends. I mean, residency is it's more general, it's more broad. The orthopedic residency, so there's orthopedics, there's sports residencies, there's residencies in women's health, in geriatrics, in neurological or neuro residencies, and Fellowship is a sub niche of orthopedic, or the fellowship that I did is a sub niche of orthopedics and sports, and so of the orthopedic and sport residencies. And so the residency, really its main goal is to prepare you to take the OCS, which is a test. And so it's a little more on the leather bound book side of things. It's a little more on memorizing, and a little more on it's really just the books in general, versus the fellowship is all about creating or teaching you or helping you learn or learn how to create the best outcome for your patient. So it's very, very clinically based more than anything. In that sense, it's basically, the way I like to call it is almost like, you know, residency is like high school, and fellowship is kind of like college. It just takes everything. It's a little more laid back, it's a little more relaxed, but it takes everything to a much higher level, and it's way more specific in what it teaches and how it goes about teaching it. Like, when I was going through the residency, I didn't learn about movement impairments. I didn't learn about some of the really advanced high-level clinical reasoning skills in terms of the answering the question why, behind a lot of the injuries, and really digging deep with those, especially all those injuries that don't have a specific mechanism that occurred, and really understanding the deepest levels of why, and solving that, first and foremost. And so really helped accelerate my clinical side more than anything.
So we get questions about this from previous students and just PT students right now. What has been the day-to-day experience like, from maybe even your residency experience to your fellowship, and in terms of, what made a big difference for you, or just overall, just tell us more about your experience from that transition from, maybe even as a PT initially to your residency and then onto the fellowship program.
Yeah, so the fellowship I did was a part-time fellowship, so that made the biggest difference. That means I could get paid a regular salary, which is going into a residency right out of PT school. Typically, it's a stipend. Typically, it's a reduced salary. You're also working probably, gosh, depending on the location, working 50, 60-hour weeks, if not more, at a reduced rate. And so that's a full-time program, 1 year, versus the fellowship. As I mentioned, you work, at least the one that I did, is a part-time fellowship in which you work your normal 40-hour work week, and then every about fourth or fifth week or so throughout the year, actually about 18 months total, we went through all the coursework. And so it was a little bit different in that sense, to where it was spaced out a little bit more. It was one of the main reasons why they did that too, I should mention, is because it gives you an opportunity to work on what you learned and those new skills in between classes. So it's almost like you learn a specific segment, and then you can move on with your patient care and treating that and applying your new skills before you move on to the next. So that was probably the biggest difference in that sense, in terms of just the day-to-day, in that the fellowship, while the content was more advanced, it was a little more spread out and laid back, so stress. And there's something also that I just love to do, and it's super interesting. And so it didn't feel like school, or more school to me. It just kind of flowed naturally. So it was an awesome experience.
Do you think it's better for people to go straight through to that, or you think they should get some clinical experience first and then learn how to operate in a clinic and then come back later?
These days, no, I think you should go straight to fellowship. I think if I were to do it again, I love the route that I took, and I think the residency really, really helped solidify things. But I think you could get likely what you're looking for if you go right to fellowship right out of school, because it's not a requirement unless they have changed recently. I have to check the standards, but it's not a requirement to have completed the residency before fellowship.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the fellowship, you said it was very heavily manual based. So you want to tell our listeners, what does that mean?
Yeah, so I mean, manual therapy is the hands-on work that we do as physical therapists, and so that could involve everything from mobilizations, which different ways to get the joint or the muscle or soft tissue to move better, from muscle energy techniques to, we learned over 100 different manipulations, not just at the spine, but of the throughout the entire body. And manual therapy is something that can be a powerful tool to make some pretty quick changes in patients, which can not only facilitate buy-in, but can also, make sure that you're going in the right direction with how you want to lead the rest of your treatment, especially the exercise portion.
And what are the main populations that you work with?
I would say average age is 30, probably 36, mid 30s, mid upper 30s is probably the average age of who we work with. Very large majority CrossFit athletes. I'd probably say 75%, and then the rest 25% is just a mix of everything else that I mentioned in the intro. Everything from just the active adult that's trying to just lose weight, improve their health, and just be a better, healthier, more resilient person, to a college or professional, football player, basketball player, hockey, whatever the case is. So it's largely CrossFit, though, more or less, and we are located inside of a CrossFit gym as well. So that definitely helps out.
And how do you approach CrossFitters as far as a different population, or how would you say that the treatments can vary with them compared to general population?
Well, the demands they put on their body is quite different. I mean, it's not too often that the general population is going to be required to go to end-range overhead, shoulder, or do an end-range movement that involves overhead shoulder mobility to the, to full overhead extension or flexion, if you will. But like, for example, the overhead squat, I mean, that's quite a total body movement. And generally, looking outside of CrossFit, the general population is looking at runners or everyday gym goers, or I always call them everyday gym goers, always get made fun for that. The classic bodybuilding routines, the YMCA goers, those people, typically their goals are a little bit different, just a little less extreme from the mobility side of things as compared to what CrossFit requires, because CrossFit obviously not only has those strength components, but all the gymnastic movements as well, and some of those Olympic weightlifts and more complex total body movements. So it's a little bit different.
So do you do CrossFit?
I do. I do CrossFit 5 days a week. I have 1 day of rest, and I run 1 day for anywhere from 4 to 6 miles.
How did you get into CrossFit?
How to get into it?
Yeah.
So I was a personal trainer for a good 4 or 5 years prior to PT school, like I said, and I was always the quote unquote everyday gym goer, right? And I was really good at making routines. I worked out in a regular gym for many, many, many years, and quite honestly, just got boring. And CrossFit was something totally different. It's not only a different type of workout. The programming obviously is quite different, pushing yourself to that level, but I really love the community aspect of it. The working out in the warehouse, or got loud music playing. It's just like everyone's doing the same workout. I didn't have to think; you just got to show up, and so it just made things very different, very fun in that respect. And it was also something, because at the time I moved from Houston to Charlotte about 4.5 years ago, and that's when I started CrossFit, when I moved to Charlotte. So it was also an avenue to meet more individuals and or meet some more friends, and get to know the community a little bit better.
Why did you choose Charlotte?
Why did I choose Charlotte?
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Philadelphia originally, and Charlotte was. So I was in Houston, as I mentioned, prior to moving here, and Charlotte was just. It was closer. I knew I wanted to be closer, but I did not want to go all the way up to Philly. It's just too cold. Love my friends and family up there, but it was just too much. And so I actually kept in pretty close contact. I was good friends with three other friends that I went to physical therapy school with. We all moved around the country after we finished doing different residencies and things. We finished those up, and we're talking this whole time, and we're like, let's reunite. And so we just picked the city, and me and 3 friends moved here within like 2 months, which is pretty cool. And yeah, Charlotte just had the perfect climate that I was looking for. It was a big city, but not crazy big. Very young professional type of a city, and quick short flight home. Little bit 8.5 hour drive, so it's a little rough if I were to drive, but I have done it before because I do have a dog. But yeah, it was just kind of perfect combo of everything I was looking for in a city.
So what made you want to start your own business? That's not always a typical thing in PT school where they tell you that that's an option. Normally they just tell you the different settings you can work in.
Oh, I hear you, man. In PT school, I was just probably like you guys, where it was like, all right, I got a budget of uh, $100,000, and I need to create this big facility and hire all the staff, and get with insurance companies. But yeah, anyway, so I didn't learn anything about this style of the business that I have now, and decided to start it because working for hospital systems prior to coming in here and prior to starting this up, and I was kind of fed up with the situations that was constantly put in, meaning I was not able to treat one patient at a time. I was swamped with paperwork. I was not treating the type of people that I wanted to treat because I had done all this advanced training to become really proficient with the athlete in particular. And then I wasn't seeing very many athletes, and it was just frustrating. I felt very capped with how far I could take, you know, take my, just take my abilities. And I felt like these bigger companies, no matter how valuable you became clinically and how good of a clinician you may have become, they kind of took that for granted. Like they didn't reward that at all. And that was a little frustrating. So I just really wanted to, create an environment where I could take advantage of my skills and use my skills to really help a very, very, in my opinion, very underserved population. Because if a CrossFit athlete has shoulder pain and they're having issues with snatching or overhead squat, and they go to 90%, 95% of clinics, physical therapy clinics out there, most 95% of those PTs are going to be scratching their head and exactly how to really solve this long term and get them back to high level demanding activities. So it was something I pretty much was forced. My hand was forced that way pretty much.
Because they look at their paper and they're like, well, according to this, you can put dishes away, so you should be good.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, they don't have pain. Yeah. With everyday activities, they only have pain with, with the overhead squat. And then, yeah, insurance is going to look at that and be like, what the heck's the point of, why would I reimburse for that? That's not a necessity of life. Or is insurance, the binds on insurances were frustrating. I mean, not just from, the patient side of things because of high deductibles these days and all that, but the therapist being overrun and being forced to see such high number of patients because of the low reimbursement rates, it was just a mess.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be headed for a train wreck as the cost of school keeps going up and they have to keep seeing more and more people per hour. I just don't see how that's a feasible model going forward. We've had that conversation with multiple people at this point.
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, this is the style of business that y'all have, that we have, is definitely the wave of the future. And I think in no time there's going to be, a physical therapist in most gyms in fitness arenas, not just gyms, but whether it's cycle studios or whatever the case is, they're going to be everywhere in the city, and that's it, which is cool. I mean, it's good that our profession is adapting and not just crumbling under whatever's happening out of their power. So we'll see what happens.
For sure. I think it's going to be in for an interesting future. I mean, it's changed a lot. And we've only been out of school a few years and it's already, I mean, more and more people at the business group that we're at keep showing up and they're doing the same thing that we're doing. So the numbers are starting to grow, I think. And other people are like, they see you doing it and they see us doing it and they're like, oh, so it's possible. Like I can definitely do it.
Yeah, sorry, you cut out there a little bit on that last one. Say that one more time.
I was just saying that when you see other people doing something, then you know it's possible. So now that students are seeing
Yeah.
people leave school and then going and starting clinics, they realize there's another way. They don't have to work in a regular outpatient clinic until they're burned out and then go work in a hospital until they injure their back and can't work anymore. There are other career paths that are available.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's cool to see the evolution of the group because when I first joined, there was 12 of us in the group, and now there's 90 or getting close to 100. So that's good to see. Hopefully it continues to grow.
That's awesome. So you do something else too, like you do some consulting for some professional teams, correct? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I became an instructor through the fellowship program that I'm in, and good friends with the owner, and I'm a part of the faculty and I work closely with them, and we have a 2-day certification course through our fellowship program. It's a certification in sports manual physical therapy, and so yeah, I'll help to teach the course on occasion, and I've been super fortunate, and to be blessed to have the opportunity to work with some professional teams, helping to teach the course, and so it's largely NFL, but we've also worked with the NHL, NBA, and some college teams as well, both football and basketball. So it's definitely been a blessing, and I'm super fortunate to be able to have those opportunities. But it's cool. Off season can get a little bit hectic sometimes, which is right now basically. So got a few trips coming up, and but it's a nice change of pace, get away from the working every day in my business as much as I love it, and I have a blast every day I'm here. But it's cool to travel around and kind of see what other organizations are like and kind of learn about them. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I find that too when we go to continuing education classes and we get to interact with the different clinicians and see what setting they're in, or what, maybe even international practices, as sometimes people will go to, they travel with a tennis team and like, this is how kind of the Europeans practice, or like the Spaniards or the Australians. And it's really interesting because, we're all essentially helping the athlete, but we might go about it a different way, which is it's just interesting to see that there's uh, so much variation in modalities or tools, or techniques, philosophies, if you will. But it's cool to learn from that, because it just gives you a different lens. Not necessarily it's one's better than the other. It's just cool to see that variety.
Yeah, no, I agree. Even though I'm, the one that's going there to teach the course, it's every organization, you're exactly right, is different. Not just different personalities, but their styles, the way they go about things, and their methodologies. And we've seen quite a bit of variabilities in like rules and how, what their strength programs look like, and with, in the off season. And, it's very interesting. You would think it'd be a little more standardized, but it's very different organization to organization.
And what do you look for in general? Are you analyzing their strength programs in their off season, or you do more of a maintenance, or like, how are you involved in that process?
No, oh, good question. Sorry, yeah, to clarify. We are working with the physical therapists and the athletic trainers there. So we don't work with the players. So we'll do a 2-day course where we teach the sports manual therapy certification course to their training staff,
Okay.
which is largely manual therapy based, but also heavy in movement and clinical reasoning.
Gotcha. So what's something you commonly see in your practice that you wish more people knew?
Something I commonly see is just the amount of people that sleep on their stomach that have low back or neck pain. Honestly, I don't know why that's such a hidden gem out there, but like, for some reason, in my opinion, I think that might be the number one risk factor for low back pain, is sleeping on your stomach. If the whole world knew that, there'd be millions of dollars chopped off the whole medical system, start to finish. I kid you not, it plays that big of a role.
And what's something that you've learned that you wish you knew sooner?
Something I learned that I wish I knew sooner. I would say, that's a good question. Do you want an example clinically, or just business, or with my business, I mean, or do you have anything, which direction are you thinking for this?
Surprise us.
Or both?
Both.
Surprises. This doesn't even have to be related to anything we're talking about. I'm just kidding.
Talk about cooking if you want.
Yeah. I hear you. I wish I understood balance, because as we've talked today, I basically filled the career pot, if you will, of if I were to create 7 or 8 different buckets of life, whether it's career, finances, mindset, physical health, mental health, relationships. If I've devoted so much time into career that I let some of those other areas fall behind. Career and physical health, I should say, in particular, were the 2 that I spent so much time in. And about a year and a half ago, and COVID really actually helped spring me in the direction I'm in now, and putting more time and effort into making sure all your buckets are at an even level just allows you to be a more relaxed human being, and allows you to make better decisions, not be reactive, form better relationships. It affects everything in your life. You sleep better. It's stress is lower. And so I think for me, if I were to learn years ago about, self-development, self-improvement, there's so much out there, so many free resources, whether it's YouTube or podcasts or different companies that provide free resources that, can really make a drastic change in someone's life and how they perceive and go through life. I mean, life is all about the process. Like, yeah, the goals are important and end game is important, but if you're not enjoying what you're doing from every single day and making the most out of every single day, then you're missing out on life. And that's my biggest thing. Is one of my goals I set was not to be, someone that works Monday through Friday to get to the weekend, and then Sunday night, here I am dreading going back to work. And it's like life's too short for that. And so just having balance is huge, and learning about that is huge. Wish I would have done it sooner.
Sound advice, especially for people starting their own company.
Yeah, it's tough, but yeah, actually, Eve, who, for those of you that don't know, which is probably most, he's one of the business coaches that we have here, and he called me the stoic of the group the other day, which I thought was interesting. I was like, oh, okay, because he's like, yeah, you never seem, no matter what happens in your business, you're always even keeled. You're not reactive, especially things that are out of your control. There's no sense in getting worked up on things that are out of your control. Like, for instance, both my entire business, which is located inside of a gym, my gym failed an inspection last week, and since I subleased from them, then all my treatment rooms were shut down. Something totally out of my control. And so rather than hit the panic button, I was able to make some just simple, calm decisions and rolling through it.
That's love it. What's something you've been working on professionally, personally, maybe physically, or even mentally that you're excited about?
I mean, it's kind of going off what I was just talking about, where I was just working on, working on developing myself as a human, as a whole, especially the mindset, the emotions, all the, all the untouchables, because, that really, it's, you could have two people in the same situation, but they could perceive it totally differently. And then that will affect, many different things thereafter. And so, so yeah, just having better understanding of mindset and how much time you spend in developing the untouchables can just make such a drastic difference in your life and how you feel.
Is there a particular thing that really stood out to you recently that you've read or realized in that process of that self-development?
So a guy called Project Life Mastery was what kind of sprung me into things. His name is Stephen James. He's got a big YouTube channel. But yeah, reading books. I was never a book reader. I'm sure a lot of listeners they despise books as well. But it's just the right kind of books. And so I got into book reading a lot more than I ever had this past year. And there are just an endless amount of books that can help you take your life to the next level and who you are as a person. I don't have anything in particular, but getting back to book reading, is definitely something that has helped to. There's just so much knowledge out there and just so much room to grow. And no matter how much you learn and grow, there's always going to be more. And just understanding that and always improving yourself can really just set you apart and, set you away from the rat race, if you will.
And what do you want to leave the listeners with?
Well, since we're going down this rabbit hole here or this topic, I mean, that's the biggest thing that's changed my life. It affected me professionally and personally, and just understanding that there are, what I'd say, about 7 different facets of life. If I were to repeat them, we're talking physical health, career, your finances, your spirituality, mental health, relationships, and friends and family. And, even a little simple exercise you could do is write down those 6 or 7, however many I just mentioned, and then rate them 0 to 10. 10 being how fulfilled you feel in that spot, and 0 being none at all. And kind of take a step back and look at what areas that you struggle in or you're lower in, and then take an action towards improving yourself in that area. I think if everyone did that, the world would be in a much better place. But it's always an ongoing process, and the cool thing is yeah, it's a never-ending amount of things you could learn. So it's exciting.
Yeah, very much so. How can people find you?
So my website is thecharlotteathlete.com. I also have a YouTube channel, The Charlotte Athlete, and Instagram, Facebook at The Charlotte Athlete. So certainly you can take a look at my company and learn more about us there. And anyone had any particular questions or just wanted to chat, I'm always open and love to hear from you guys. And my email is just andrew@thecharlotteathlete.com. So love to hear from you guys if there's anything you're interested in, or anything I can help you with.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time. Thanks for being on the show.
Really appreciate y'all. Have a good day.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks. We'd like to thank you for listening to La Vida Las Vegas podcast. We hope you enjoyed the time with our guests as much as we did. It would help us out so much if you could share, subscribe, or review our podcast, or any combination of the three. Thanks again, and remember to take care of yourself.